own form letter within the next 24 hours and announcing that, and hopefully we can get at least 1,000 messages sent into the government. And so I guess we'll open it up to questions. So if someone wants to send in via their chat or question box a question, I can ask that, or if somebody has a microphone that functions and they want to ask a question, then they can raise their hand and we'll put you on. I'm going to start out with a question of my own. You showed the slide of Ben Bell before, his data set where 88% of the Archie's frogs had declined. At the start of the data set, the population level appeared to be increasing. Was that just an artifact of them improving their skills and being able to find the frogs, which are very cryptic, or why do you think that was?
Right, that is part of the way that he analyzed it. He used the Jolly-Sieber method, which sort of relies on how many frogs you found the previous year. So it sort of works out, so it works on a minimum number alive. So it works out how many were alive the previous year. So for those first couple of years he did it, he started with no data, so it looked like there weren't a lot of frogs because it was comparing it with nothing. So it's sort of a little bit of sort of getting a baseline, and then once it had a baseline, then it could calculate how many frogs were there. So really, I suppose that most of the data in that slide is really from where it starts to level off. So probably the first 3 or 4 bars on that graph were sort of erroneous as he was starting his technique.
Yeah, okay. All right, and so I'm going to ask one question sent in from New Zealand. Sorry if I mispronounce the person's name. I think their name is Rude. So he wants to know, you mentioned the antimicrobial substances that the frogs secrete, and he wanted to know if there's been any serious studies into the medicinal uses of those, thinking that if there is some medicinal use, hopefully that the pharmaceutical companies could be directing some funds towards the conservation of the species.
Right. Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and yeah, I know Rude, so it's good that he was listening today. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a hard one to look at, and we've looked at the peptides on most of the species of New Zealand frogs, and the peptides are completely unique. They're not found on any other frogs, and because there's been quite a lot of interest, particularly from pharmaceutical countries, on what peptides are produced by amphibians. And just like everything else with our amphibians, the peptides are unique. So it's a lot of MSMS mass spectrometry that we're trying to do to identify what these peptides are, and then to see how good they are. One of the work that we started to look at is that all our native frogs are pretty resistant to chytrid fungus. We find that their peptides are probably very active against chytrid fungus. So I think there's a lot in that, and it would be a good idea to get the pharmaceutical companies looking at the frogs as long as they could synthesize the peptides rather than having to harvest them from the frogs.
Okay, thanks. So let's see, a couple questions coming in, but first we've got Terry St. George and Richard Jacob Hoff who have their hands raised. So I'm going to unmute Terry, and hopefully you'll still be there. And let's see. Terry seems to have disappeared, so I'm going to unmute. Ooh, where'd they go? Sorry.
They all disappeared.
Okay, well, I'm going to unmute. Here we go. I'm going to unmute Terry, and we'll see if a voice comes out from Terry's speaker. Okay.
Hi, Kerry. Can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Hi, Kerry.
Yep.
Hi, Phil.
Oh, hi, Terry.
Yeah, I was just, we're involved in trying to do pest control in an area around the Coromandel to protect the, in particular the Archies and Hochstetter frogs. And with the spread of chytrid fungus that's gone through, I'm interested to know if there's any research that shows that in the wild, these frogs have managed to breed through and beyond having that fungus go through their populations.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I think because they are such long-lived and they take a long time to breed, that when their populations are severely depleted, like what the disease probably did in the Coromandel, that we haven't been able to pick up yet whether they're breeding up with some kind of resistance during that time. We do know in the Farrier-Reno population that frogs that we collected that tested positive for chytrids a couple of years ago have now tested negative again and have tested positive again. So it does look like the ones that survive the initial infection actually are resistant. But whether they are actually passing that on to their offspring, we don't have any evidence on that, and it would be something really good to look at.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, this is Kerry again. I was talking to myself. I had myself muted so that no one would hear me before. Sorry about that. Yeah, so everybody's still here. So let's see. We have a couple hands raised, so we're in no hurry. So let's see. We have a question from Michael Cunningham, who is in the New Zealand media. Or I think he's in the New Zealand media. But he says this issue is underappreciated by the local media, and he says that a sub-editor of a regional paper is unaware of the frog connection with the mining, and suggests that there be press releases sent out throughout New Zealand and elsewhere. So I know that Save the Frogs has the capability to do that. I'm wondering, has any of this been done that you know of, Phil?
A couple of places were planning to put out press releases, and I think it's probably going to be time to try and hit the press this weekend.
Okay, so yeah, I can help out. We have the capability to get that out, so we'll definitely discuss that. So good idea, Michael. So let's see. We've got the Vice President of Save the Frogs, Dr. Jean-Marc Hero, my former PhD supervisor, who has his hand raised. So we're going to unmute him and see if he comes through.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phil, I'm just interested in how we can move this further in terms of a global strategy to try to bring together herpetological societies around the planet and to give you a much stronger international lead. And I was wondering if you had any ideas on how we might be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking to Simon Stewart at the IUCN SSC, and I think he's been trying to connect with a lot of the amphibian specialist group chairs to try and get a good response. He sent in a submission, and the Director General of the IUCN has also sent in a submission to the New Zealand government. So I think through our network like that, and certainly through the websites, I'm hoping that a lot of the international community will get behind this.
Yeah, there's one. I've also put in a submission individually, but also in my role as the Secretary General-elect for the World Congress of Herpetology, and also in my other roles in the Australian Society of Herpetology. It might be good to put a page up on the website, on the New Zealand Frogs website and on Save the Frogs websites, of I guess a group of global amphibian specialists or leaders or IUCN, whatever their particular roles are, who support you in this. So that might be sort of like a page with a whole lot of mugshots of important people around the world.
Okay, yeah.
Not that I'm very.
Send us a nice mugshot.
Okay, yeah, we can collect some of the various herpetological society. If each herpetological society perhaps could put in a letter on behalf of their herpetological society, we can certainly collect those into one area that's visible. So, okay, let's see. Moving on, we've got a question from